Good afternoon, everyone. We've got a lot to cover in the next 30 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Welcome to today's virtual session, and thank you for joining us. On behalf of Qventus, we're pleased to present this session on the new Qventus Perioperative Solution, how OR leaders can add 1 million plus in margin with AI and behavioral science. I'm Sana Ahmad, and I'll be the moderator for today. Before we get started, I want to just cover a couple of housekeeping items. You can submit questions throughout the webinar by clicking the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. We've allocated time following the presentation portion to answer any of those questions. We will also be emailing out the recording of this webinar following the session for your reference. I now want to take a moment to welcome our presenters for today. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. David Atasharu. Dr. Atasharu is the Managing Director of our perioperative business at Qventus, where he has led the design and development of the new Qventus Perioperative Solution, in addition to other product and clinical operation roles at the company. He holds a doctorate in medicine from the University of Missouri-Columbia and trained in plastic surgery at the University of Kentucky before completing his postdoctoral fellowship at the Stanford University School of Medicine. In addition to his role at Qventus, Dr. Atasharu continues his clinical practice at the University of California, San Francisco. Next, I'd like to introduce Anthony Mormon. Anthony is the Director of Solution Marketing at Qventus and has also co-led the design and development of the new Qventus Perioperative Solution. Throughout his career, Anthony has focused on helping hospitals and health systems design growth and competitive strategies, and he has previously held healthcare advisory roles in organizations including Healthcare and the Chartist Group. All right, we have an exciting agenda lined up for you today. First, we'll provide a brief introduction to Qventus and the complete system for real-time clinical operations. We'll then segue to the bulk of the session where we'll share how OR leaders can address challenges on improving growth and access using new AI-powered technologies. We'll provide an overview of the Qventus Perioperative Solution and also walk through a demo. Next, we'll share some of the impact that our health system partners have achieved and how the solution is helping frontline teams. Finally, we've saved some time at the end to answer any questions. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Anthony Mormon.
Thank you, Sana. First, some quick background on Qventus. We specialize in combining modern innovations such as AI, ML, and behavioral science with deep expertise in healthcare across clinical operations, performance improvement, change management to simplify how healthcare operates. We are a proven partner demonstrating success in more than 120 deployments across the country. Before we dig into the actual solution, I'm going to add a little bit of context on the technology that drives all the innovations you're seeing today. Our platform enables sustainable results and rapid development of new interventions by creating a foundation for real-time automation. We integrate in real time with your EHR, which enables you to manage operations as a closed loop system. First, AI and ML automatically identify operational issues in real time as they're occurring, as well as in the future, predicting them before they occur. Next, actions are orchestrated using behavioral science-based techniques and process automation to complete tasks whenever possible. Finally, the system provides leaders with sophisticated statistical tools to manage accountability. That platform is the core of the system, and you will see it come through as we dig into the perioperative solution today. On top of that, we develop best practice solutions. These are predefined bundles of software together with proven operational processes and management practices for key areas of healthcare delivery. And then finally, we work with you to establish governance, drive change management, and operationalize these solutions. This is really important. We really pride ourselves on being a strategic partner, not just a technology vendor. So on to the OR. Today, OR leaders face a seemingly impossible task: improve access while simultaneously driving growth. OR leaders are at the center of this challenge and must constantly balance competing demands from both internal and external stakeholders, including established surgeons who might not always be using their full block allocation and often only release blocks at the last minute, which leads to a scramble on behalf of the OR team. Rising star surgeons who are growing their practices and need surgical time, but may not have block allocated yet, and are always requesting access for more time. And then there's internal pressure from health system leadership to not only grow the business, but outperform the market in key service lines. And then finally, all this falls back on the OR teams who are constantly under pressure to respond to ad hoc requests and execute on these goals while dealing with antiquated systems that make their jobs more challenging. So to make this system work, it requires constant heroic efforts on behalf of the OR leaders and their teams to ensure that all of these stakeholders are meshing seamlessly. But what if there was a system that helped you balance these needs of all the stakeholders in an efficient way that just worked, and it helped achieve strategic goals? That's exactly what we set out to build with the new Qventus Perioperative Solution. And I'm going to tee this up with an example and then hand it over to Dr. Attashri to share the solution with you. So in the current state, we have an example teed up here where we have an underperforming doc 30 days out from their block. They're most likely not going to use that time, whether they have a conference they're attending or a kid's baseball game that they'd like to go to. They haven't notified the OR. Fast forward to 12 days out from that block, we have an independent surgeon. They don't have block time yet, but they'd like to add a case. Their scheduler calls the health system and are told, sorry, we're full. We're unable to accommodate that case right now. They have to make a few other rounds of outreach to find someone who can accommodate that case. Fast forward to day 7 from the block, that block is auto release. The doc still hasn't booked a case in. Now it's on the OR team to scramble to find cases to fill that time. After a few rounds of outreach on day of surgery, maybe you have a handful of cases booked in that time. But most likely, and all too often, what we see is that this time goes unused. So the ideal state, or the future state with Qventus that we're building, is a state where as early as a month out from the block, we can predict with a high degree of confidence that it will not go used. So in the example we have here, at day 21, the access module can identify that this surgeon is unlikely to use that block time. We automatically engage that doc using behavioral science-based techniques and incentivize them to proactively release that. In our example here, the doc thinks about it for about a week. Their scheduler then clicks, okay, I'll release the block on day 14. Automatically, the growth module notices that there's open time in the schedule and begins offering that time to the surgeons who are predicted to be the best fit for that surgical slot, such that by day 12 in this example, that rising star surgeon that would like to add a case already has an offer in their inbox for this available time. And then all they and their scheduler have to do is click, I'll add a case, and then all the steps you see here in gray are eliminated, such that by the day of surgery, we have a high value case performed on time, aligned with the strategic goals of the health system. And all the while, the Insights module is monitoring this and offering coaching and performance improvement feedback for the OR teams to sustain these improvements. So that's what we have built. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Attashri now to share about the solution in action.
All right, thanks, Anthony. So I'd like to start by giving an overview of the 3 modules that make up the product currently, and then we can dive into each one individually. These 3 are designed to work in tandem. So first, we use our AI to automate the process of unlocking as much open time as possible within your existing block framework. Here it's not just the ML that matters, but the way we leverage behavioral decision science to incent release. We then use the surgical growth module to play the Tetris, to figure out how to best pack the available time, filling the OR as fully and strategically as possible. Finally, we use action to analytics, not just prescribe what you should do, but then let the AI do it for you. We'll transition now to a demo as we dive into each module individually. So the first module is focused on access, maximizing available time in the OR schedule by automating the proactive release of unused blocks. Now, this is a difficult problem. Some of you have inherited a schedule that is over 80% blocked. Some of you have individual surgeons who consistently utilize less than 75% of their block time. And all of you have surgeons, I am sure, who are forgetful and want to hold on to block time until the very last minute. So what's going on here? The problem is blocks are static, but surgeon practice patterns are not. So at Qventus, we tackled this problem in a way that hasn't been done before. We not only automated the process, but we paired true machine learning with behavioral decision science so that we can consistently recover that time 5 to 10 days in advance of standard auto release. Here's an example. So in this case, Dr. Norris and his scheduler receive a prompt 17 days in advance of surgery, because that was the first moment that the algorithm could be confident that he had blocked that he may not need. But notice how we don't just ask the scheduler to release the time, we give them the reason why. And in this case, the prediction that there's only a 12% chance that they will need the time, and the direct benefit of them taking action in the moment, what we call the reward or incentive, which in this case is the opportunity to preserve their premier auto release time. Then in a single click, the surgeon's office can take action and communicate their intentions directly back to the OR, who can then close the loop and release the time back to the grid. Also notice how we replace all the manual effort of OR teams with automation. At one of our clients right now, we are sending 89 of these release reminders a month at an average of 24 days prior to surgery at the time of the first nudge. Those are 89 incredibly difficult conversations that your OR teams are not burdened with trying to have. Now that we've created this opportunity with additional open time weeks ahead of time, What do you do then? And that's what I want to dig into next. Do you revert to the old model of filling this time in a first come, first served way? And the truth is you could, and you'd still benefit from that approach. But that's not what we do. We choose to strategically market that time using the available time outreach product, which you're seeing an example of here. This is our push-based solution. In the same spirit of marketing automation, we've seen work so well in the consumer space, where we strategically market every open surgical slot to the surgeons predicted to be the best fit for that time based on your operational goals. And that's what we're seeing here. As soon as this robotic slot became available on 11/25, 4 weeks out, the algorithm strategically prioritized outreach to Dr. Hamilton's scheduler Toto. Why? Because Dr. Hamilton was identified as being in the top quartile of robotic surgeons whose practice the system wanted to attract and grow. Then all Dr. Hamilton's scheduler had to do was indicate their intention to use the time like this, and the OR gets an automated message to finally approve the request. It's that simple. So far, surgeons and their schedulers have loved the marketing time product because it kind of feels like magic. We're showing them we have available time for them even before they know to ask for it. Just think how that would feel for you. Imagine if OpenTable, instead of waiting for you to find an open reservation, sent you an occasional nudge when it knew that your favorite restaurant on your favorite night had an opening at your favorite time. Imagine how many more date nights you'd actually make happen then. And that's how the game changes. So in the moment, the least friction way to add a case is to book it into your OR instead of taking the cases elsewhere. And as surgeons interact with the product, adding cases or indicating that the time doesn't work, the algorithm is learning and getting better and better at setting them the next best match time. But even more than the new volume, it's how it makes the surgeon's office feel, especially for those earlier career surgeons who don't have block time. It makes them feel like the OR is really trying and working hard to get to them on the schedule. You can see an example here of how if the surgeon doesn't respond, we actually automatically then send the nudge to the next best match surgeon to make sure we give every opportunity for the time to get filled. So marketing automation, that's half the equation. The other half is a product we call Time Finder, the Expedia-esque interface for booking time that you see here. This is our pull-based strategy to not only create easy access, but allows us to optimize the filling of the OR schedule. So let me take a moment here to show you how easy it can be within Time Finder for surgeons or their schedulers to find OR time from across your system that's matched to their immediate needs within a matter of seconds. Let's actually consider a real-life situation which happened to one of my colleagues, Dr. Norris, just a few weeks ago. Here, I'm just going to input in some information. And this is what was happening. She had a patient in her office asking for a robotic surgery. Trouble is, those little robot times she had was already booked for months. So what did she do? Well, here's what Dr. Norris did. When that patient was in the office in front of her, she was able to select the dates in which she wanted to do the procedure. She was going to do a robotic sigmoidectomy. And then notice here how a predictive model has estimated the case length as well. And this can be entered directly by the surgeon and modified if they need to, but let's say we do this first. And what's going to happen is that the system is going to come back and give you an array of times displayed across the different surgical suites available at this hospital. And notice here that you can go in and modify and sort these times based off of your need to fit your needs. And so the other thing that I want to call out here, and what's not immediately obvious, is that the list here of available times, it's actually strategically sorted. So notice that it's not just chronological, and that's intentional. And the reason we do that is we're trying to highlight times that we actually think are the most important and the best fit for the surgeons and optimal fit for the operating room. And so then what my scheduler can do is come in here and click, maybe they're looking at the schedule and saying, you know what, David, when I'm looking at open time, this Friday, 7:23, that works. And this Thursday, 8:05 and Wednesday, 8:04. Those are actually great times for me, great case times. That's what I want to use. But not only open times, I want you to also take a look and see what is also available is block time, which you can see here in green. It's a really cool feature that we've enabled as well, where the surgeons can not only book just the available open time, but they can also just use this per system for their block time. We also pioneered a feature that you're actually seeing here in orange called colleague time. and it's also in another part of the product. But what this does is that shows you time on the schedule that is still blocked, that we predict that your colleagues may not need. And for those of you who have large group practices that are employed or affiliated, this can be a huge help for them to have transparency across the system. But let's stick with the open time. And let's say now I'm going to go ahead and go to checkout. What I'm able to do here is able to sort the times and actually indicate the absolute preferences that I have, maybe preferring one time over the other. I'm also able to communicate directly to the OR any additional thoughts that I might have related to the schedule. And then in the closed loop system here, and this is what was really helpful, I can communicate to the OR all the pertinent case information that I need to schedule the case. So there's no more back and forth, faxes or calls. Here I can indicate a diagnosis code and procedure codes, special equipment, prior authorization, even the COVID status of my patient. And then be able to send that, directly to the OR when I click submit. Well, you have to have that information filled out here. But let me show you what that ends up looking like. So the OR, when I click submit, they see this. They see this case that I'm looking to get booked, the times that I have available. Their scheduler is able to jump into the procedure order form I submitted and see all the available times, all the available case information that they need to schedule the case. And then what they're able to do is in one click, just say, you know what, that works, the case was added, and that automatically triggers a response back to the surgeon's office to close the loop, letting them know that they've been able to get the case on and get them booked for surgery. It's that easy. And so that takes us then to our third module, which is our surgical insights module. So here's what we know. Transparent analytics with definitions that everyone agrees on creates a common language that enables productive conversation. But that is table stakes. If the analytics relies on users to self-service or do too much exploration to figure out the insight, that's asking too much. So we build analytics for two different users, OR directors like yourselves, which you see here in Opportunity Finder, and surgeons, which you see here with a tool that we call Surgeon Practice Insights. These are analytics that don't require you to search. They're curated for you. They don't require you to request a report. They're available in real time. They don't just state the facts, they prescribe what actions you might take. And even more than that, in some instances, they automate the last mile. We'll talk through a robotic example of that later, but let's start by looking at Opportunity Finder. Notice here that it's not just the standard tired metrics that you see here. We're showing you case volume and we're showing you case minutes. But don't you care about being able to answer to a surgeon who's asked, how easy it is for me to get on the schedule? If you to be able to see it in a second and say, you know what, I'm able to track that and we care about that. We're looking at your scheduling lead time and we're able to see how that differs between your service and other services and how that's changing over time. And certainly you want to be able to see utilization without having to pull a report and see what has been happening in block versus out of block and release minutes across different surgeons and different services. We do that. But don't you really care more about being able to have an opportunity to get in front of prime time overruns and case delays by actually improving case scheduling accuracy? And what would it be like if you could actually look and see at a glance to know that, look, ENT, 32% of their cases are running long, are booked to run long. And that's 450 cases. And why is that happening? Can you actually drill down and see that at a glance that, you know what, that's because, for instance, there's EMC fractures. Those are scheduled to run long 64% of the time. And so there's something that we may be able to get an opportunity there. And how about robotics? Let's actually look at an example here. How many times have you been caught in the middle of conflicts over robotic access? Or how many of you have felt the constant pressure from surgeons to buy another $2 million robot? Our clients have felt the same thing. But the robotic program directors were left asking, why do I see all this non-robotics volume on the robot? Can you help us understand that? But more than that, can your AI actually help us fix that? The answer is yes. And so what we did was we gave them the analytics to see what was happening. A breakdown of non-robotics cases and when they were booked on the robot, broken out by service, broken out by the time of days that was happening, and if it was in block versus open time. But also we gave them a forward look so they could actually see here are the upcoming cases scheduled on the robot, but that are non-robotics cases. But even more than that, we took it a step further. The real power came when we were able to actually notice that and do something about that for them. And here's an example of what you're seeing here. We sent a message to Claire, the OR director, letting her know that, look, Dr. Norris has a pelvic hematoma scheduled for 255 minutes in a few weeks. Now that's holding up the robot. But we have noticed that at that same date, at the same time, an OR8 and OR4, you could actually move his non-robotics case off the robot and create available time on the robot for another surgeon. And that's just what you did here in order to recover that robotic time. That's an example of pairing analytics to the last mile automation that has been so meaningful for the partners that we work with. I'll give you an example here for Surgeon Practice Insights. This is very similar to what we saw with Opportunity Finder, but tailored for the surgeons. This is delivered directly to them, available to them in real time, and also sent out to them, allowing them to see their practice, get insights into how they're working within your operating room, and also show them how they can continue to win more, where they can see their case backlog, their scheduling lead time, their case scheduling accuracy, get a sense of what cases they're doing the most and how they compare to their colleagues, and also be able to look at their team efficiency on things like on-time start rates when they're following a different surgeon, or room turnover, close to cuts, and how they compare to other surgeons within their group. They also get the opportunity to see how they are winning within the system, in this case, the surgeon adding 19 cases. The other thing that becomes really important is that managed accountability layer we talked about earlier. How do I provide visibility to the OR in one go so that they can see all the time what outcomes they're having through the product, what cases that they're adding, how many cases per OR per month, so they can look at engagement and be able to tell which surgeons are adding the most cases and how within the operating room, or be able to take a look at who are our top engagers from schedulers. All of our partners have loved this ability to be able to work within the system to manage accountability and drive adoption further within the product. All right. So the most rewarding part of our work actually has been the impact we've been able to achieve with our clients. With the Qventus Perioperative solution, our partners are seeing significant and sustained results that are transforming their perioperative business in very meaningful ways. Our partners are able to add 1 to 2 cases per OR per month. That translates to 20 to 70 cases per month in total for each of the health system partners we work with. Even with the most conservative estimates and looking just at contribution margin, you're looking at over 100,000 in contribution margin monthly, over $1 million annually. That feels meaningful. And with an ROI of at least 4 to 1 and a break even in a quarter of full launch, that feels doable. On top of that, we find that we are increasing lead time for blocks released by about a week and driving utilization of that release time to over 50%. That's almost double some of the best quoted industry standards. But it's not just the qualitative results that matter. Let me tell you how this benefits the OR teams and stakeholders on a daily basis. Beyond the hard ROI, there is the softer benefits, which feel just as meaningful. And these additional benefits really matter to staff satisfaction, to culture, and also to patient outcomes. To help with illustrating those points, I provided a few examples here of feedback we're hearing directly from these clients. In addition to the quantitative benefits to the organization, the solution actually translates to tangible benefits to surgeons and their schedulers, to OR teams and patients on a daily basis. It is reducing the cognitive burden on schedulers with automation, and that helps reduce burnout. The solution is also a big satisfier with my colleagues, with surgeons, because it provides much easier access to the OR time. And we hear strong enthusiasm from them, as you can see on the right-hand side there. And with better predictability of schedules and volumes, it actually helps for the OR teams to smooth staffing. And finally, the solution is helping create a better care experience for patients by decreasing wait times and helping set expectations with patients in advance. I think before we transition to the Q&A, I just want to take a moment, and speaking as a surgeon myself, to emphasize how critical it is to bring these new innovations into daily OR workflows, to make healthcare simpler, to make it better for OR teams, for surgeons and schedulers, and ultimately for patients. Every OR should have the opportunity to have this type of technology. Our surgical resources are too precious. The opportunity is too great to not leverage technology in the same way it has been used already to revolutionize every consumer industry. And the beauty is, it's attainable. Every OR we've worked with had competing priorities, difficult surgeons, constrained budgets, an overflowing plate. But with our proven solution and prescriptive implementation approach, all of our partners have achieved meaningful outcomes. So we would be delighted to continue the conversation with you and explore how the Qventus Perioperative solution can actually work with your organization. To be honest, this year we have capacity to add about 6 new partners, but that's all we can do in our early access program. The remaining spots are limited and they're filling up quickly. So if innovating here is exciting to you, there are two easy ways to continue that conversation. The first is please feel free to contact us at partnerships@qventus.com. We'll get right back to you. But probably the best way is to use the Calendly link that we'll share out in this chat to schedule time directly with us. I know how busy we can all get. So those are actually in your inbox now, so you can save some follow-up time before we end today. On behalf of Qventus, I just want to thank you again for your time, and let's jump into some QA.
All right, thank you, Dr. Atashru. That was a great overview. I'd now like to transition to our Q&A portion for the remaining time. For our webinar attendees, feel free to enter any questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If we're not able to address your question in the time remaining, we're happy to follow up offline. All right, so it looks like our first question here, what does the implementation process look like and how soon could this be up and running?
I'll handle this. It's a great question. Typically, our implementations are about 3 to 5 months for a single site with about 30 or so ORs. As David mentioned, our pipeline's filling up. So how soon could we get up and running? Reach out and we can get you worked in for a slot by the end of this year. More specifically on the approach to implementation, we approach it in a phased manner. We start with what we call a Vanguard cohort that follows the initial planning phase. And really the key to that is our attention to change management and ironing things out and figuring out the ideal process changes with that Vanguard cohort of about 15 or 20 surgeons, and then getting a really smooth adoption and process ironed out before expanding to the entire enterprise. So all said and done, that's about 3 to 5 months in total. And then if there are multiple sites that are interested, we can kind of iterate and expand in sequence from there.
All right, thank you, Anthony. Our next question here, how does this solution help better achieve growth compared to using the EHR or other existing tools?
Another great question. I think there's a few factors with this one. The first of which is our system builds on top of the big investments you've made in the EHR and in your other tools. The EHR was never really intended to be a proactive outreach engine. It's not really a real-time prediction engine, and that's what we have built to live on top of the EHR. And so our automation platform is able to drive industry-leading ML predictions using your EHR information. And then that enables our other key differentiator for growth, which is our behavioral science-informed user engagement. So offering the right prompts to the right users at the right time and getting them to take the appropriate action in a sustainable way. So when we're talking about growth, the first step is creating access. Getting the docs to release that time is key. And then offering time to the right doc for the slot they need when they need it is the second half of that. And that's not something that we've really seen in the market so far to date. And we think that's a really unique approach that we're proud to bring to the market. And additionally, the final factor I think that helps us drive growth is our approach to partnership. We partner with our clients into deep strategic partnership and really understand your goals and objectives when we're building and implementing this system. So I think all of that together is how we drive growth relative to the other options that are out there.
All right, thank you, Anthony. And then our last question here before we wrap, could you share any other lessons learned or critical success factors from current partners?
Yeah, I'd say we've learned a ton from our partners in this process over the last year. Some of the most important lessons are around the importance of simplifying the current process. I mean, that's something we've always known, but it's become really apparent when we've started rolling out this new solution. Change management's always difficult, but it's much easier when you're able to offer somebody something that's significantly less work than the old way of doing things. People are excited about these new options that they have. And so take Time Finder, for instance, when we're able to present this to a team of schedulers or to the surgeons, they're excited that in just a few clicks, they can see all available time in the ORs that they have access to. And then with a few additional clicks, request access and then submit that procedure order form right through the application, as opposed to playing phone tag, waiting for someone to look something up in an EHR, and then faxing over a separate document. It's all on one screen and you can accomplish that in seconds. So that's the kind of simplicity that we offer to, we endeavor to drive in all areas of healthcare. And we're excited to be able to bring this to the perioperative space.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony. All right. It looks like we are at time, so we're going to wrap up here. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We hope you found this session to be informative, and we hope you have a great day.